I thought our marriage was picture perfect. Until I found out my wife was planning to run off with her art professor, leaving me and our daughter behind. Jack Campbell was a man of routine. Since college, life had been predictable, especially after meeting Alice, a fellow student passionate about art. They quickly bonded over shared goals. Though their paths diverged, John started a small printing shop in Elmville while Alice pursued her art. Despite different interests, their marriage seemed strong and they supported each other as they built a life together. Their happiness peaked with the birth of their Lily, who became their world. However, as time passed, subtle changes crept into their relationship. Conversations grew shorter, and the connection they once had began to fray. Jack noticed, but was too busy to address it until Alice's distant behavior became impossible to ignore. In recent months, sitting at his desk, John pondered what to do. His wife of 6 years had been acting differently since Christmas, seeming preoccupied and distant. Their once meaningful conversations had dwindled to brief exchanges, and Alice's repeated claim of nothing being wrong frustrated him. Determined, he planned to confront her again that night. The growing distance affected their Z's life, once active but now reduced to almost nothing. Alice had been taking evening art classes for the past 5 months, and John noticed they were lasting longer. On other nights she would work on her paintings for hours while cared for Lily. During these times he began to wonder if something more was going on. Twice he checked up on Alice at the university Unity but found nothing suspicious. She was always where she said she'd be working on her art. As Jay answered there, unsure how to fix something he couldn't even confirm was broken. His new assistant, Sarah, approached him and said, "Jack Alice is on the phone." Sarah, a recent hire, had quickly proven her worth by efficiently managing customer service and administrative tasks, freeing John to focus on running the business. With the post-Christmas slowdown coming to an end, he appreciated her skills even more. Jack picked up the phone and greeted, "Hi dear. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Jack," Alice replied. "I just want to know if you'll be home at your usual time tonight." "Yes, I should be," Jack assured her. "Sarah has things under control here." "Good." Alice said, "I need to talk to you. I'll see you at 515. "Goodbye. Love you," Jack replied. But she had already hung up. He stared at the phone, troubled by how quickly she'd ended the call. Just a few months ago they would have chatted and teased each other over the phone, but now she seemed distant. Jack picked up a photo on his desk from their vacation last year in Florida. They were on the beach smiling with their arms around each other. He remembered how good their first 5 years of marriage had been, filled with trips and romance. Their once frequent lovemaking had dwindled, and he couldn't understand why he hoped to get answers tonight. The ringing phone pulled John from his thoughts. He answered and returned to work, deciding to deal with his problems with Alice later. Just before closing time, Sarah and Tom, his only other employee, entered his office. Sarah informed him of a rush job that needed to be finished by morning, but John couldn't stay late. Tom reluctantly agreed to work overtime. John quickly packed up, eager to talk to Alice. He left the office and arrived home early. Entering the kitchen, he found Alice staring out the window. When he greeted her and tried to kiss her, she turned away and said, "Please, JN, don't I need to talk to you?" Confused, Jack followed Alice into the living room. She sat down and after a moment said, "Jack, I'm leaving you." "No, I'm divorcing." "You stunned?" John asked. "What? How can you say that?" Alice explained about taking her art course. She realized she had fallen in love with Michael, her professor. She felt they were better suited for each other, sharing more interests. Michael was leaving for Paris at the end of the semester, and she wanted to go with him as his wife. She needed the divorce finalized by then. "You're talking about Michael Warren, your professor?" Jack asked. In disbelief, Alice nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "Yes, Jack. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "But it has." John sat in silence, his mind racing through the years he'd spent with Alice, the love they shared and the future he had envisioned. He wanted to argue, plead, or make her see reason, but deep down he knew nothing would change her mind. The woman he loved was gone, replaced by someone he barely recognized. Alice stood up slow. I'll have my lawyers send the papers on Monday. I'm leaving now. Lily's with my parents and they'll bring her home at 7. Jack wiped his eyes and followed her to the front hall. He watched as she picked up her suitcases and walked out the door. At the bottom of the stairs, Michael Warren approached, took one of the suitcases and gave John a smug look. Alice didn't look back. As they drove away, John closed the door, tears falling. As he sat back on the sofa replaying the evening's events in his mind, time slipped away until the doorbell rang for a brief moment. He hoped it was Alice returning, but it was her father, George Daniels, who walked in. I see she told you, George said, disappointed. I can't believe she fell for that guy. George's wife, Karen, and their daughter, Emily, followed, carrying Lily and her things. The family's somber expressions showed they had been crying. Lily, however, remained cheerful, unaware of the pain around her. John stood, and they all hugged him, offering comfort. With no siblings and his parents gone, the Holmes family was all had. They sat together discussing what had happened. No one could believe it. Tears were shed again as they shared their disbelief. Around 7:30, Karen suggested finding something to eat and she and George went to the kitchen to prepare sandwiches. Emily handed Lily to J.N., who let his daughter play in his lap even as she tugged at his hair. Despite the sadness, Lily's laughter brought a moment of relief. Soon they all gathered around the coffee table to eat. J.N. wasn't hungry, but ate anyway, appreciating the company. As they ate, he observed the Daniels family, George and Karen, both retired and active, and Emily, the 16-year-old, with braces and a quiet smile. After the meal, Lily entertained everyone by standing at the coffee table and trying to grab plates, her playful antics lifting their spirits. By 8:30, Emily volunteered to get Lily ready for bed, while Jack, George and Karen discussed the logistics of balancing work and childcare. They decided John would need daycare, but Karen offered to help in the meantime. John planned to take the next day off to handle things. Emily returned reporting Lily was asleep. J.N. thanked her for her help. After more conversation, the Holmes family decided to leave. John expressed his gratitude and locked the door behind them. He checked on Lily, who was sound asleep, then poured himself a stiff drink to calm his nerves as he sipped. His Scotch anger replaced his earlier sorrow. Alice had shattered his world and he vowed not to make things easy for her. J.N. went upstairs to the master bedroom and turned on the light. It was the first time he'd been there since Alice left, and he noticed the empty closet and bare makeup dresser. The attached bathroom was also devoid of her things. He turned off the light and collapsed on the bed, tears returning, as he felt. The emptiness inside Alice was gone, and though he doubted he could win her back, he felt he had to try. Eventually the scotch took effect and he fell into a restless sleep. Still dressed, he woke early, took a hot shower and went through his morning routine, though the thought of living without Alice weighed heavily on him. After checking on Lily still asleep with her teddy bear, he kissed her cheek and went downstairs to prepare breakfast. He made coffee, found cereal for both himself and Lily, and forced himself to eat. Despite having no appetite, his thoughts remained on Alice, but he knew he needed to focus. J.M. brought out his briefcase and did some work at the kitchen table until he heard Lily waking after changing and dressing her. He fed her breakfast. When Lily realized it was her father feeding her and not Alice, she began to cry and John struggled to calm her. Eventually he distracted her with a toy and she settled down. He called the office and left a message for Sarah to contact him. When she called back, he explained he'd be working from home for most of the day but would stop by later. He didn't mention what had happened. Soon after, Karen arrived to care for Lily. While John finished his work by 1,000, he joined John and Lily in the living room. Karen noticed John's exhaustion and commented on it. Jack admitted he'd slept poorly, ate only by scotch, but resolved to get through this for Lily's sake. He even confessed he might take Alice back for Lily's benefit, though he suspected Alice had already moved on. Karen hesitated before revealing that Alice had told her she'd been physically engaged with Michael over the last 2 weeks, which was why she distanced herself from John. However, she reassured John that Alice had said he was the more considerate lover and her decision wasn't based on sexual dissatisfaction. John appreciated the clarification, but doubted Alice would change her mind. Deciding to distract himself with work, John headed to the office, determined not to let his business fail. He kissed Lily, who proudly stood by the sofa and waved goodbye, just as he had many times before. He reminded himself that his priority was ensuring Lily came through this situation unscathed at the office. Sarah was busy on the phone, so John went straight to his desk, needing time to compose himself. After the emotional drive once settled, he handed Sarah the files he completed at home. Noticing her concerned look, he decided it was time to explain the situation to her. When Sarah entered his office, Jack asked her to close the door and sit down. It was difficult for him, but he eventually said, "Sarah, I'm dealing with a serious situation at home. My wife left me last night, but she didn't take our daughter. I've become a single parent. You've been here only 2 weeks, but you've shown great competence. I'd like to make you my office manager. With a 150 raise for now, we can review how things are going in a month." Sarah was surprised but accepted the offer. She assured Jack she was up for the task, especially with the extra pay. John expressed his confidence in her abilities, explaining that he needed her help as he juggled work and caring for Lily. Afterward, he shared the news with Tom, who offered his support. John worked until mid-afternoon before heading home with files. To finish, he asked Sarah to call him if any issues arose, assuring her that he trusted her decisions at home. Karen told Jack that Lily had fussed for her mother at lunch, but she eventually calmed down. John set up his den to work, realizing he needed better equipment for working from home. The afternoon passed quickly, and by 4:30 he wrapped up work. Karen, who had started dinner, mentioned she had a commitment over the weekend and suggested Emily help with Lily. Jack agreed, appreciating Emily's help. After Karen left, Jack fed Lily, who cried for her mother again, but he managed to distract her. The evening was quiet, and after Lily's bath and bedtime, Jack poured a scotch and sat reflecting on Alice. It was midnight before he went to bed. On Monday, February 4th, Jack woke early and reflected on the weekend. Emily had arrived on Saturday and took charge of caring for Lily, allowing John to focus on upgrading his den into a functional office by Sunday noon. His office setup was complete, and he spent the rest of the day with Lily and Emily at the park. Although Lily had a few tantrums, Emily managed to soothe her, keeping her occupied. Karen picked up Emily on Sunday evening, promising to return Monday morning. She arrived at 8:30 and Jack headed to the office. The morning was busy until Sarah brought in a courier envelope from a law firm. She handed it to John with a concerned look. Jane hesitated before opening it, finding papers reflecting the terms Alice had agreed to, including arrangements for her time with Lily. John placed the papers in his briefcase, knowing he needed to contact his lawyer, but lacking the energy. He already dreaded Wednesday when he would see Alice again, fearing it would feel like losing her all over again. The rest of Monday and Tuesday flew by, but Wednesday morning Jack woke up earlier than usual, wanting to leave as soon as Alice arrived. When the doorbell rang at 8:30, he braced himself. Alice was facing the street when he opened the door, so he simply said, "Come in." "Lily's still asleep. I'll be going now." He grabbed his briefcase from the kitchen and left through the side door, relieved to avoid a conversation with her, fearing he might break down. Wednesday felt like the longest day of John's life, with his thoughts consumed by Alice's presence at home. By the time he returned, the emotional pain had resurfaced twice. He nearly broke down in tears, wondering if he should consider counseling for depression. At 4:30 he called the house and told Alice, "I'll be home around 500. Please leave by the front door when I come in through the side. I can't face you today." Alice agreed with a simple "all right." When Jack got home, he heard Alice leading through the front door. As he entered through the side, he saw her drive away without looking back. Supper didn't go well. John couldn't eat, and Lily, after finishing her meal, began crying for her mother. Nothing seemed to console her, and she cried so hard she struggled to catch her breath. Jan, deeply upset, finally calmed her down, gave her a bath and put her to bed, staying with her until she fell asleep. That night Jan repeated his ritual of a scotch and deep thinking. staying up until 1:30. He decided he had to act for both his and the man's sake. He would contact his lawyer. Thursday morning, Jack called his lawyer and scheduled an afternoon appointment. At 2, he handed his lawyer, Bob Taylor, the papers from Alice's lawyer. After reviewing them, Bob noted that Alice's terms were unusually favorable, with no demands for personal or child support. John agreed but insisted on changes. He wanted Alice to give up all parental rights, avoid any contact with Lily or him, and sign a legally binding agreement to stay at least 5 ft away. He made it clear that if Alice didn't agree, he would fight the divorce. Bob was skeptical but agreed to draft the letter, cautioning John that Alice might not accept these terms. John returned to work feeling better, now that his demands were in motion. He heard nothing more that week and decided to repeat the weekend arrangement with Emily, which had gone well. Emily agreed and they spent another good weekend together. This time she brought home work and Jack helped her with geometry and algebra, while Lily napped, which she considered a fair trade for her babysitting. On Tuesday, February 12th, Jack's week began with the new routine he'd established. He worked from home, connecting to the office through his new computer setup. Sarah managed the office well, rarely needing his input. The business space had picked up and all 3 employees stayed busy. Just before noon, Jack received a call from his lawyer, Bob Taylor, asking him to come in for a 2 p.m. meeting. When Joanne arrived, Bob smiled and said, "I don't know how you did it, but Alice agreed to all your terms. I've never seen a divorce settled so quickly with such serious conditions. Her lawyer will send the signed documents later today. Once you sign, we'll forward your copies." Joanne was shocked but relieved. After signing, he left the office telling Sarah he would work from home for the rest of the day and possibly the week. Working from home went smoothly on Tuesday, but the next few days were challenging. John tried managing both work and caring for Lily on his own, but the demands of parenting often interrupted his work. By Friday evening, after putting Lily to bed, Jack poured a scotch and realized he needed a better plan. The solution came to him easily. He decided to visit his in-laws over the weekend to discuss his idea after breakfast. On Saturday, he called Karen and they arranged a visit at 2 p.m. She also invited them to stay for dinner, which J.M. gladly accepted. When they arrived, Emily immediately took charge of Lily, which fit perfectly with J.K.'s plan. He joined George and Karen in the living room and shared the recent events, including Alice giving up her parental rights. Both were shocked but understood John's reasoning. Jack then proposed his idea, having Emily move in and help care for Lily after school, allowing him to work at the office in the evenings. He explained that his growing business needed his attention and Emily could be compensated for her help. This arrangement would also allow George and Karen the freedom to travel. He emphasized that they should discuss it with Emily and decide soon. John agreed that it was a promising idea and suggested they discuss it with Emily after dinner and give J.N. an answer the next day. They all agreed and the topic wasn't brought up again during the visit. After a pleasant evening, Jack and Lily returned home, spending a quiet Saturday night together. On Sunday morning, Jack received the expected call from Karen. She told him that Emily was excited about the idea and both she and George agreed it could work. Since there was some time pressure, George offered to come over that afternoon to help set up Emily's room. When George arrived, John showed him the house layout. The master bedroom and bath were on the right, at the top of the stairs, with Alice's former studio on the left. Lily's room and the main bathroom were next, and at the end of the hall was the guest bedroom. Jack and George cleared out the guest room, removing unneeded items to make space for Baba's things. They decided to put Emily's computer, desk, bookshelf and study desk in Alice's old studio. George offered to buy a rug, blinds and curtains for Baba's spaces, since Jack would be busy with work and Lily. They also planned to add child-proof gates to the stairs. On Monday, February 18th, Jack called Sarah to let her know she should contact him on his cell for any emergencies. He also instructed her to leave any evening printing jobs for him as long as Tom had other work. The day went smoothly with only 2 brief calls from Sarah. At 3 p.m., George, Karen, and Emily arrived with enough of Emily's belongings for a 2-week stay. They helped set up her room and settled in. Jack thanked them, kissed Lily goodbye, and headed to the office. Once there, he called a meeting with Tom and Sarah to explain his new schedule. Jack outlined that he would arrive around 3 p.m., handle calls and meetings during business hours, and work on files and printing after 5 p.m., aiming to reduce Tom's overtime. Tom and Sarah saw no issues with the plan and they continued their work. Jack worked through the files, took a break for a sandwich, and completed the small printing jobs. By 9 p.m., he finished and decided to head home early to check on Emily. At home, the house was quiet. He found Emily working in her study room, surrounded by school books. She was in her pajamas, focused on her homework. JN asked how things were going, and Emily mentioned Lily had been a bit fussy, but otherwise fine. She also asked for help with her math homework, which John gladly provided after freshening up as they worked together. John noticed Emily was more comfortable around him, smiling more easily, though she still blushed when their hands accidentally touched. Their relationship had grown stronger. The rest of the week went smoothly. JN and Emily established routines. JN prepared breakfast. Emily packed lunches and fed Lily, and John took over Lily's care once Emily left for school. On to evenings. John finished work early and joined Emily for dinner, appreciating her cooking skills. On another evening, he stayed home longer so Emily could study for a test, then returned to the office and worked late. Their first weekend under the new arrangement also went well. Emily watched Lily while JN worked on Saturday afternoon, and Jack spent Saturday evening with Lily, while Emily went out with friends on Sunday. JN invited George and Karen over for dinner to discuss the past week. They agreed that everything had gone well and decided to make the arrangement permanent. Emily's remaining clothes would be brought over during the week, and Jack would arrange temporary guardianship papers so he could handle any school or emergency situations. Two bank accounts would be set up, one for Barbara's wages and another for her clothing. Incidentals and allowance funded by her parents. George and Karen were excited to start traveling in their motorhome and planned to prepare it in the coming week. They also decided to buy a dolly to tow their car and aimed to leave in 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks passed quickly, with JN and Emily refining their routines. One emergency arose when a major client needed to meet with JN. Unexpectedly, he asked his neighbor Helen Stewart, a 60-year-old widow, to babysit Lily. Helen enjoyed it and offered to help any time, which relieved John's worries. John's business continued steadily, and working evenings allowed him to avoid hiring another employee. Sarah had become so capable that she really needed to call him at home. The pressure Jack had been feeling began to lift, and he started to enjoy life again. Since Alice's departure, John's emotional and physical desires had been suppressed. As the 1-month anniversary of her leaving approached, he found solace in memories of his first girlfriend from college, though he still thought of Alice daily and fell asleep. With her image in mind, he began accepting life without her. He also started reducing his nightly Scotch habit. Fearing it could become a problem, he knew he had too much to live for, especially Lily. On Sunday, March 10th, Karen and George joined Jack, Emily, and Lily for dinner before their motorhome trip. After the meal, they relaxed in the living room talking and watching Lily play. Karen expressed her frustration that Alice hadn't called since leaving, and George added that he was also surprised. John admitted he didn't expect to hear from her, given the terms of their separation. During the conversation, Jack asked if Emily had her driver's license. Recalling seeing her drive, George confirmed she did, but mentioned they were taking their car on the trip. Jack offered to insure Alice's car for Emily to use for school and errands, which both George and Emily appreciated. Emily excitedly agreed, promising to drive carefully. As the evening wound down, Emily put Lily to bed and planned to study, while Karen and George prepared for their early departure. They said their goodbyes, promising to call regularly, and left, excited for their new adventure. Jack and Emily waved them off from the front door on Wednesday, March 27th. The past 2 weeks had flown by for Jack. He and Emily had continued refining their responsibilities around the house. With Emily now using the car, she handled most of the grocery shopping, usually on Saturdays, while Jack cared for Lily. That morning, Emily slept in due to her morning classes being cancelled for a teacher's meeting. She had asked Jack to get Lily up, which was usually her task. After feeding Lily, she began crying and looking around. Jack hoped Lily would eventually stop missing her mother. But she continued to fuss. At that moment, Emily came downstairs in her pajamas for breakfast and Lily immediately stopped crying. When she saw her noticing this, Jack remarked, "Looks like she's missing you." "Not Alice. You better not move back home anytime soon." He joked, "Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere." Emily replied with a smile as she picked up Lily and went back upstairs on Thursday, April 4th around 10 a.m. Jack had just finished reading to Lily, who was now scribbling with crayon in her high chair, when the doorbell rang. He made sure Lily was secure. Before answering, he found Victoria Rowe, a longtime friend of Alice, at the door. "Hi, Victoria. Long time no see." Jack greeted her. "Hi, Jack. Jack, I thought I'd stop by for some coffee. Your office said you work from home." Lynn replied Jay and invited her in, and they sat at the kitchen table with coffee. Victoria, as usual, looked stylish, wearing a tight white sweater that emphasized her curves. "So, Victoria, what's the real reason you're here?" Joan asked with a knowing smile. "I've been talking to Alice. She knows she can't contact you directly, but she asked me to check in. She's not trying to reopen old wounds. She just wants a few photos of Lily." Victoria explained. "That's fine." Jan agreed. "I understand why she'd want photos, though it might upset her." Victoria took a few pictures of Lily coloring and shared that she told Alice she was making a mistake by leaving. She even mentioned that if her ex had been like Jack, she would never have forced him. "Thanks for the support," John said, reflecting on how difficult things had been. He explained that the early days were tough, but he'd hired a nanny for Lily. Victoria was curious about the nanny, but before John could elaborate, her phone rang. She'd forgotten a hair appointment, apologizing. She quickly took a few more photos, asking John to hold Lily for some, then hurried out as she left. She mentioned she'd let Alice know about the nanny and would stop by again for more photos if JN was okay with it. On Wednesday, May 1st, Emily's parents returned from their trip and Jack and Emily invited them over for dinner. They shared stories and photos of their travels, mentioning they met a couple with similar interests and planned to join them on another trip starting May 15th. George and Karen were excited about the upcoming journey. They were eager to hear how things had gone at home, and Jay-in reassured them that everything was going well. His business was busy, but he still had time to spend with Emily and Lily. Emily was doing well in school and Lily was adjusting nicely, even taking her first steps and starting to say Dade and Baba. Her grandparents were thrilled. Emily then shared her own news. Her orthodontist told her the braces could come off in Karen and she had decided to pursue a career in graphic design. Her parents encouraged her to keep an open mind until she finished high school, but they were supportive. Jack mentioned that his business might need a graphic designer in the future, and Emily joked that she could work for him someday. Later, Jack informed them that Alice had sent Victoria to take photos of Lily, which they agreed was likely for the best. They also noted that they still hadn't heard from Alice. The week had been routine until Wednesday, when Jack received a call from his lawyer, Bob Taylor. The divorce papers were finalized and would be official in 3 weeks. This news hit Jay and Harden instead of working. He spent the afternoon lying on his bed thinking about Alice. The pain in his chest returned. Later, unless you sigh, Victoria called to arrange another visit to take photos. But Jack asked her to wait until the following week as he wasn't ready to deal with anything related to Alice. Monday, May 27th, marked the end of a tough month for Jack. The divorce was finalized the previous week and he had received the documents confirming it. After a brief afternoon at work, Jack confided in Sarah, who was concerned enough to call him at home. Later that evening, Jack retreated to his office with a scotch, trying to hide his emotions from Emily. However, she found him crying and comforted him, reminding him that he still had her and Lily. The next Monday brought more difficult news. Emily returned home after stopping at her parents' house and found a message from Alice. She hesitantly told Jack that Alice had called to say she was marrying Michael Bridges on Saturday and that they were leaving for Paris on Sunday. John's reaction was immediate. He turned pale and tears filled his eyes. He whispered, "Oh God." As Emily shared the news, he thanked her for being there for Lily. knowing he wouldn't be good company that night, and decided to head to the office to process his emotions. After he left, Emily quietly expressed her sympathy for John, wishing she could help him move on from Alice. Then she called her parents to give them the news. On Tuesday, Karen 11th, Jack waited for Emily to return from her final orthodontist appointment, hoping that getting her braces off would help her become more confident and social. When she arrived, he smiled and said, "Let's see that big smile you've been hiding." Emily flashed a smile and Jack encouraged her to show it more often, telling her she was beautiful. Emily, touched by his compliment, hugged and kissed him on the cheek, and John blushed in response. By Monday, July 1st, John's work had kept him busier, so he hadn't joined Emily and Lily for dinner. As often, he decided to make the holiday weekend a family time. He spent Saturday doing chores and cooking, while encouraging Emily to go out with her friends. That evening, Jan spent the night playing with Lily, reading to her and putting her to bed with lullabies. When Emily returned at 11:30, they watched Saturday Night Live together, laughing and sharing jokes. On Sunday, they visited the local zoo with a friend of Emily's, and Jack enjoyed watching the girls have fun while he pushed Lily in her stroller. They had dinner at a family restaurant and the girls helped keep Lily entertained. On Monday, they enjoyed a picnic at the park where Emily brought another friend while Lily played. The two girls socialized with other friends. Later, they ate ice cream and enjoyed the fireworks. That night, after Lily was asleep, Emily thanked John for the great weekend, hugged him and headed to bed, leaving John with a smile. A week later, John and George returned from their trip and spent many weekends and evenings visiting with Jack, Emily, and Lily. They shared stories and photos, enjoying family time together. Jan adjusted his work schedule to spend more evenings with Lily and give Emily time with her friends once a month. Linro visited to take photos of Lily, sending them to Alice in Paris. During one July visit, Victoria hinted at her interest in John, suggesting he could ask her out. John politely declined, saying he wasn't ready, but Victoria made it clear she wanted to be first in line. When he was in early August, John overheard George and Karen discussing what to get Emily for her birthday on August 17th. Realizing he needed to get her a gift as well, he began thinking about what to buy. On the morning of Emily's birthday, Saturday, August 17th, Jack woke up early to prepare a special breakfast. When Emily came downstairs, she was surprised to see a happy birthday Emily banner, a festive tablecloth and candles on the table. "Good morning, birthday girl," Jack greeted her, serving her favorite blueberry pancakes, as her mother had mentioned. Emily, touched by the effort, thanked him. After breakfast, John gave her a card and a gift certificate for a day at Domenico's beauty spot. Emily was thrilled and hugged John tightly, though he gently pulled back, feeling a bit uncomfortable. He kissed her forehead and wished her a happy birthday. Later, at her parents' house, Emily's mother teasingly pointed out that the spa package included a bikini wax. Embarrassing Emily, the conversation soon shifted and she eventually laughed it off. On Tuesday, September 10th, Emily started her senior year of high school with her first class at 11 a.m. She relaxed at home until she heard the doorbell, Jack greeting someone curious. She peeked downstairs and saw a well-dressed woman taking photos of Lily. The woman flirtatiously touched John's chest and Emily overheard her, said, "I'll hold you to that next month for sure," followed by laughter. Feeling uneasy, Emily returned to her room wondering who the woman was and why she acted that way with Jan. Later she asked John about the visitor and he explained that it was Victoria Rowe, a friend of Alice, who took monthly photos of Lily. Still concerned, Emily left for school deep in thought on Wednesday, October 16th. It was a warm fall day and Jack was outside with Lily, who was dressed without a diaper as part of the toilet training. They were playing in the fenced front yard when John heard the sound of a camera shutter and saw Enro arrive. "Hello, Victoria. I didn't see you there. How are you?" Jack greeted her. "I'm good. But I'd be even better if you took me out for dinner this weekend." "How about it?" Victoria replied with a playful smile. John laughed and agreed, suggesting Saturday night. Victoria proposed dinner and dancing, which John accepted. joking that she'd have to pick the dance spot since it had been a while for him. Victoria suggested they could always dance at her place if they couldn't find a spot. Ben took a few more photos before leaving, reminding John to make reservations. That evening, John had dinner with Emily and Lily and asked Emily if she was free to babysit on Saturday as he had a date with Victoria. Emily's smile faded and she hesitantly agreed, seeming upset after John left for work. Emily, feeling emotional, confided in Lily, worried that John might be serious about Victoria. Determined to compete with Victoria, she decided to use her beauty spa gift certificate and start working out while Emily was at home feeling sad. Jack was at the office excited about the date and feeling ready to move on from Alice. He made dinner reservations and finished his work with newfound energy. When he got home, he noticed Emily's light was still on and checked on her. Seeing she'd been crying, he asked if she was okay. Emily downplayed it, saying she was just having a bad day. Jan offered to talk if she ever needed to and that mission that Mrs. Stewart could babysit if Emily had plans. But Emily reassured him she was fine to babysit. Before he left, Emily asked if she could start using the exercise equipment in the basement. Jack agreed, reminding her to be careful with Lily. Around the next morning, Jack noticed Emily had already started using the equipment. Seeing her return from a workout in a t-shirt and shorts, impressed by her dedication, he commented that she was putting him to shame. Emily simply replied, "No time like the present." Before heading upstairs to shower on Saturday, October 19th, Jack felt the day drag as he waited for his evening date with Victoria. He noticed Emily seemed unusually serious and checked if she was okay with babysitting. She assured him she didn't mind. By 5:30, Jack was ready, and when he came downstairs, Emily complimented him, saying he looked very handsome. He handed her a list of his evenings, locations and phone numbers. As he left, he mentioned he might be home late, telling her not to wait up. After he left, Emily held Lily, fighting back tears. She quietly told Lily, "I hope your dad doesn't fall in love with her." Lily's usual babbling brought a small smile to Emily's face. When John arrived at Victoria's, she greeted him in a stunning black dress. He admired her with a whistle before they headed to the She Ran for dinner. Seated near the dance floor, they enjoyed drinks and conversation. Victoria expressed surprise that John had asked her out given his past with Alice. John admitted he wasn't entirely over Alice but was trying to move on. They had a great meal and shared a dessert, laughing and feeding each other whipped cream. After dinner they danced, and as they swayed closely, Jan became aware of how physically close they were. His initial concern about Victoria noticing faded as they continued dancing. However, when a familiar song played, a favorite of his and Alice's, his mood shifted. Sensing it, Victoria teased him, but John explained the song's significance. They took a break from dancing but returned to the floor for more songs throughout the night. After midnight they decided to leave outside. Victoria kissed Jack passionately and the two continued kissing in the car back at Lynn's apartment. She invited him in for a drink. Once inside they resumed kissing before Victoria reminded him about the drink. After pouring wine they toasted to good friends and continued talking. Victoria mentioned she had told Alice about her plans to ask John out. Though Alice hadn't responded, John suggested they avoid discussing Alice, as her memory still affected him. Victoria took the hint, set their glasses aside and led John to her bedroom. Lighting candles, she stood before him and unzipped her dress, letting it fall to the floor. "Well, what do you think?" she asked, turning in a circle. Jan simply replied, "Amazing." They soon had sex and showered together, enjoying a satisfying end to their evening. Victoria wanted John to stay the night, but he knew he had to get home since he hadn't informed Emily he might be out late. At 1:30 a.m. he kissed Victoria goodbye at her door. She teased, "We have to do this again sometime." John laughed, agreeing it wouldn't take much conveying. When he got home he chose not to use the garage, worried it might wake Emily. However, he noticed her watching from her bedroom window as he walked up to the house upstairs. Jack knocked on Emily's door and asked if everything was okay since she was still awake. She replied everything is fine, but he sensed something was off and asked if he could come in. When she agreed, he entered and saw she had been crying. Concerned, he asked what was bothering her. Emily hesitated before asking if he was in love with Victoria and whether Victoria would move him, as she didn't want to leave him. And Lily shot. Jack reassured her that he wasn't in love with Victoria. They were just friends and he had no plans to move her in. He added that he wanted Emily to stay at least until Lily started school, as Lily had bonded with her like a mother relieved. Emily smiled and thanked him, admitting she feared being sent home. John gently touched her head and assured her she didn't need to worry about that. He then said goodnight and left, reminding her that they both needed sleep. Before Lily woke up, Emily lay in bed for a while thinking before finally falling asleep with a smile. On Wednesday, October 23rd, Jack was ready to leave for work. When Emily came home from school smiling, she asked if he had any plans for November 16th, and when he said no, she told him she had made dinner reservations for his birthday and arranged for Mrs. Stewart to babysit Lily. On Saturday, November 16th, John started his day early, but not as early as Emily, who had already been working out. She reminded him to be ready by 6 p.m. for their dinner plans. After she went upstairs, JN reflected on how well things were going. His business was thriving. He had hired another printer, bought more equipment, and Sarah, his office manager, was doing great. She had even suggested hiring a part-time graphic design student, which had worked out well, improving their work quality. JN had been out with Victoria again the previous weekend and they had spent another night together. He noticed Emily seemed a bit distant for a couple of days afterward, but returned to normal by Tuesday. Meanwhile, Lily was progressing quickly, using many new words and being proud of her recent toilet training. Her grandparents were impressed with her growth. Emily went out before 9 a.m. and Jack spent the day with Lily reading her favorite books until she napped while she slept. He caught up on office work. Later, after taking Lily for a walk, he noticed Barbara's car was back. Mrs. Stewart arrived at 4:30 to babysit Lillian. After making sure she had everything she needed, JN went upstairs to get ready for his dinner with Emily. At 5:30, JN was downstairs. When Emily appeared, Mrs. Stewart exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, Emily, just look at you." JN turned and immediately understood why Emily's ponytail was gone, replaced by a stylish cut with highlights. Her makeup was flawless and she had clearly had a manicure. She wore a black dress with a knee-length skirt and spaghetti straps carrying a matching purse. "Emily, you look amazing." JN said, "You've gone from 17 to 21 since this morning." "Thank you, Jack. I used up your gift certificate. It was time for a change and this made it possible," Emily replied, grinning from ear to ear. Mrs. Stewart turned Emily around for John to see the full transformation, adding, "Emily, you've really grown from a girl into a woman." Blushing but smiling, Emily took John's arm and asked, "Well, Mrs. Stewart, do we look like a couple?" "You sure do." Mrs. Stewart responded, "We need a picture." Jack retrieved his camera and Mrs. Stewart took several photos of them. Then it was time to leave. Jack helped Emily into the car and as they drove off he asked, "So where are we going?" "I reserved a table at the She Ran dining room. I figured it must be good, since you took Victoria there." Emily replied, "You seem to know Mrs. Stewart pretty well." Jack remarked, "She comes over. Sometimes when you're at work we talk a lot. She's really nice." Emily explained. At the She Ran they were seated quickly. Couldn't get over how much Emily had matured, not just in appearance but also in confidence. Shortly after they sat down, the waitress asked for their drink orders and mistakenly assumed Emily was JK's wife. Emily, grinning, ordered a Coke and John laughed at the mix-up. Their meal was delicious and their conversation was more in-depth than usual. They decided to share a dessert and by the time they finished the band had started playing. Jack noticed Emily watching the dancers, so he asked if she wanted to dance. "I'd love to," Emily said, mentioning that her dad had taught her to slow dance. They danced 3 songs together before the music sped up. Emily was a smooth, confident dancer and John enjoyed their time on the dance floor. They danced 5 more slow songs throughout the night, thoroughly enjoying themselves. Afterward, as they returned to the car, Emily looked radiant and John couldn't stop smiling. When they pulled into the garage, Emily said, "There's one last thing I want to give you for your birthday." She leaned over and kissed him gently on the lips. Though brief, the kiss left John momentarily speechless. Emily then got out of the car and John hurried around to help her inside back home. They chatted with Mrs. Stewart about their evening while having coffee. After Mrs. Stewart left, Jack took Emily's hands and thanked her for a wonderful evening, telling her it was the best birthday he'd had in years. They went upstairs together, and as Joan stopped at his bedroom door, Emily waved and said, "Good night." "Good night, Emily," Jack replied, as she entered her room. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. He went to bed. John stayed awake for another hour, replaying the evening in his mind. On Tuesday, December 31st, at 7 p.m., Jack was waiting for Emily to get ready for their New Year's Eve outing with her parents. George and Karen had returned home on the 15th, and the group had spent a lot of time together over Christmas. The 4 adults were heading to a New Year's Eve party at the She Ran Hotel ballroom, with Mrs. Stewart babysitting. Lily, Emily volunteered, appeared to be the designated driver, so Jack poured himself a small scotch while waiting as he sipped. He reflected on the past 2 weeks. George and Karen were amazed at how much Emily had changed during their trip. Her new hairstyle and confidence made her seem like a different person. J.N. had been busy as his business grew, looking forward to a slower pace after the new year. He had given his employees reduced hours between Christmas and New Year's to enjoy some extra time off. Christmas had been a pleasant celebration with Emily's parents, and there had been plenty of fun moments, like when Karen and Emily kept catching John under the mistletoe. George and Karen decided to attend a New Year's Eve party and found for tickets, insisting that J.N. and Emily join them. At 800, after Mrs. Stewart arrived to babysit, J.N. and Emily left to pick up her parents. At the party they met another couple, Pat and Sylvia, friends of Jack's. The 3 couples spent the evening dancing, chatting and having a good time. Emily especially enjoyed being part of the adult group, dancing with Jack, her father or Pat throughout the night. As midnight approached, Emily made sure John was on the dance floor with her. While they danced and the countdown began, she whispered, "This has been the best year of my life." Jack replied, "This year started miserably for me, but it's ending much better. I've loved having you in my home. Lily adores you like a mother." Emily responded warmly, "That's so sweet, Jack. I couldn't love her more if she were my own." They continued dancing until the countdown ended and when the new was celebrated with cheers. J.N. gave Emily a quick kiss and said, "Happy New Year." "Emily, Happy New Year," she replied. George and Karen joined them with their New Year's wishes, and soon after George took Emily for another dance. As they danced, "George, gently," said your mother, "and I noticed you seem fond of John. Just remember he's been through a lot with your sister. Be careful with his feelings and don't rush things. You're still young." Emily reassured him, "I'd never hurt Jack, Daddy. I really do like him. But I'll wait until I'm 18 before saying anything." I promise. They left shortly after, with Emily driving later that night in her room. Emily reflected on her father's advice. She knew he was right, but it didn't make waiting any easier, and it took her a long time to fall asleep. On Saturday, March 15th, a warm sunny day, Emily went grocery shopping while Mrs. Stewart visited Jack and Lily. Mrs. Stewart offered to take Lily for a walk and Jack helped get Lily ready, knowing Mrs. Stewart would end up carrying her after a short distance. As J.N. finished his coffee, he decided to check if they were on their way back. Stepping outside, he saw Victoria. Ro had met them and was taking pictures. Victoria called to him, "I can't stay. I have a house shown nearby. I saw Illy and thought I'd grab some photos for Alice. I'll call you later in the week." Her last shot was of Lily and Mrs. Stewart standing hand on the sidewalk, with John watching from the doorway as Victoria drove off. They all waved goodbye. On Saturday, May 17th, Jack prepared for a date with Victoria at a bar they had discovered a few months ago. They enjoyed the place for its good dance music and lively atmosphere. Emily was also going out on a date and Mrs. Stewart was set to babysit. Jack had noticed Emily's dating had increased since the new year, though it seemed she was seeing different guys each weekend. He felt relieved. She wasn't seeing anyone seriously. as he had felt a bit jealous when she first started dating that year. Jack had started seeing Emily as a young woman after their New Year's party and dinner at the Sherry Inn with her parents. He even wondered if she might have a crush on him, although she was too young for him. Her attention had boosted his self-esteem after Alice left. However, recently Emily had been a bit distant and Jack hoped she wasn't losing interest in her job as Lily's nanny. As J.N. left for his date, he met Emily's date at the door, an average-looking teenage boy who seemed flustered. When J.N. asked him not to keep Emily out too late, J.N. picked up Victoria and they spent a pleasant evening dancing and talking before heading back to Victoria's apartment for coffee. While waiting for the coffee to brew, Jack kissed Victoria and soon they moved to the living room, where they ended up making love. Afterward, Victoria revealed that she had met someone new, Mark Arnold, and wanted to pursue a serious relationship with him. John agreed that their connection was more physical than emotional and they both acknowledged that it was time to move on. The next morning, Sunday, May 18th, Jack was having coffee when Emily, fresh from a workout, joined him at the table. She asked about his date and Jack shared that Victoria had met someone else, so they wouldn't be seeing each other anymore. Emily seemed relieved that Victoria hadn't hurt Jack, like Alice had. After finishing her juice, Emily headed upstairs clearly pleased, while J.N. remained at the table watching her go. On Saturday, Care 21st, Emily graduated from high school and her parents, Jack and Lily, attended the ceremony. Emily was thrilled to receive an unexpected award for being the third best student in her class. She credited John for helping her succeed in math and made sure to get pictures with him and Lily. As they posed for photos, Jack began to see Emily as more than just a schoolgirl. She was now a woman, and he wondered if she would continue living in his house while attending university. As he reflected on his life, J.N. realized how much things had changed since his divorce from Alice. He hoped that Emily would still be part of his future and not just a memory. He would mourn over a late-night drink. On Sunday, August 17th, Barbara A. celebrated her 18th birthday while traveling in Minnesota with her parents, leaving Jack and Lily behind. Before leaving, Emily was concerned about Lily's care, but J.N. arranged for Mrs. Stewart to babysit after just 2 days. J.N. and Lily already missed Emily, with Lily especially fussy and insistent that only Emily could care for her. However, she eventually settled with Mrs. Stewart's help, allowing John to focus on his growing business, which had recently secured a major contract, keeping his staff busy and increasing his own workload. Jack had gifted Emily a laptop before she left for university, along with a bouquet of roses which she appreciated. As the week went on, John missed their morning workout sessions together, though he continued them, noticing positive changes in his physique. On Thursday, Jack invited Lynn over for coffee and she took some photos of Lily before they chatted on the patio. Victoria shared how well her relationship with Mark was going, though his insecurity about her past with J.N. was a concern. Connor and they agreed John would send monthly photos of Lily until Mark felt more comfortable. They also discussed Victoria hearing less from Alice, who hinted at being deceived by Michael, though she offered no details. John felt that Alice's hold on him was fading, with his focus now on Lily and his business. On October 8th, Emily returned home from university to find John waiting to catch up over coffee. She excitedly showed him an online discovery, a Parisian newspaper, featuring a photo of Alice with her husband and assistant standing beside a painting titled Lily and Her Nanny. The painting depicted Lily with Mrs. Stewart and a shadowy figure in the background that appeared to be J.N. Another figure, a woman in black, faced away from the viewer. Emily was puzzled by the painting, but Jack believed the woman in black represented Alice and speculated that the painting conveyed sadness or regret. They concluded that Alice likely used a photograph replacing Emily with Mrs. Stewart as the nanny. Jack printed copies of the painting, planning to give one to Mrs. Stewart and then enjoyed a coffee with Emily. They discussed her university experience and Emily admitted that while she had been overwhelmed initially, she was now more comfortable and looking forward to more engaging classes in the next semester. J.N. encouraged her, confident that she would do well. On Saturday, November 15th, Emily asked Jack not to make any plans for his birthday evening because she had arranged to take him out. She made dinner reservations at the Shiran, where they had celebrated his last birthday, and Jack eagerly anticipated the evening. At 5 p.m., Mrs. Stewart arrived to babysit Lily, and John got ready in his new suit, feeling pleased with how fit he looked after losing nearly 20 pounds. When he went downstairs, he was struck by how beautiful Emily looked in her green satin dress and complimented her, admiring her new hairstyle. As they left for dinner, Emily took John's hand and they walked to the car, feeling natural together. On the drive they talked about her university classes at the Shiran. They enjoyed a easily meal in a private alcove. Jack noticed other men admiring Emily and asked if she had noticed, to which she laughed, saying women always do. After dinner they danced closely to slow songs, with Emily pressing close to John in a way that was new for them. As they danced, John struggled to hide his arousal, but they continued enjoying the music. By midnight they decided to head home, walking hand in hand. On the drive, Emily undid her seatbelt and snuggled up to John, just as her parents used to do. When they arrived home, Emily kissed John passionately, different from the brief kisses of the past inside. John thanked her for the wonderful evening, but she hinted that the night wasn't over, leading him upstairs to his room. She made it clear that she wanted to take their relationship further. Jack hesitated, concerned about their age difference and her parents' reaction, but Emily reassured him that she was old enough to make her own decisions. They confessed their feelings for each other, with Emily expressing her love and Jack admitting that he had been falling for her for some time. They made love tenderly, and the next morning they woke up together, shared a shower and prepared breakfast before Lily joined them. On Saturday, April 24th, Jack enjoyed a spring afternoon watching hockey after spending the morning catching up on bookkeeping at the office. His days were usually busy with managing payroll and accounting for his 7 employees. He typically worked evenings so he could watch his daughter, Lily, during the day, while Emily took care of her in the evenings, sometimes with help from Helen Pierce. It was hard to believe it had been nearly 2 years since his divorce from Alice, and much had changed in that time. As Jack was watching the game, the doorbell rang, expecting a salesman. He was surprised to see Victoria. She explained that she was engaged and had been away on a cruise, which is why she hadn't returned his calls. But her visit wasn't about her engagement. It was about Alice, who was back in town and wanted to see him and Lily. After thinking it over, Jack agreed to see her. Victoria brought Alice inside, and Jack noticed how much she had changed. She was slimmer, with shorter hair. After some small talk, Alice began explaining that leaving John was the biggest mistake of her life. She had discovered that Michael, the man she left Jack for, had lied to her. He was already married twice before, and his behavior mirrored his past, which deeply hurt Alice. As Alice was sharing her regrets, the door opened and Lily, excited about getting ice cream, ran into the room. Jack introduced Lily to Alice, who was now crying, and they shared a brief hug. But just then Emily entered the room, and Alice was shocked to see her younger sister, and now grown up and without braces. Emily explained she had been living with Jack and Lily as Lily's nanny while their parents were traveling. The situation took another surprising turn when Jack revealed that Emily had legally adopted Lily, and Emily had married during the trip to Las Vegas. Stunned, Alice left the house in shock, with Victoria following to comfort her. After Victoria helped Alice to the car, she returned to the house, concerned about Alice's state. Jan assured Victoria that they would help Alice get back on her feet. As Alice left visibly upset, Jan and Emily stood together, with Lily asking why her first mommy was crying. Emily gently explained that Alice was very sad. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.